I'm excited to announce that our online Mindfulness Fertility Series is open today, April 12th, for registration. Early bird special price and bonuses are available until Wednesday, April the 17th. So this is a 6-week live online group program that helps embrace your fertility journey with proven relaxation techniques and stress management strategies that help you regain control and cope with infertility in a much more positive way. Space is very limited. Register your spot today. So this program is a must if you have an IUI or an IVF coming up and is essential for anyone trying to get pregnant naturally. Class starts Thursday, April the 25th. So go to fabfertile.com and click on the shop Mindfulness Fertility Series to register.
The first step or one step is just thinking about connecting to ourselves in a loving way, right? So that could be just taking your hands and putting it on your belly and rubbing it. It's in between those moments when you stop that judgment, when you stop those feelings of shame. And that's a start, starting that connection with ourselves.
Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Clark. My mission is to inspire, motivate, and empower you. Most of all, I want you to wake up. So with functional medicine, we can discover what causes infertility and eventually reverse the condition. Today, I'm welcoming Amira Posner to the podcast, and we're digging into how to increase connection during the fertility journey. So definitely check out episode number 1, where Amira shares her own journey with male factor infertility and what to do when you go down the rabbit hole of infertility research. This is always a must listen for our one-to-one clients, because a lot of times when I'm talking to people, it turns out sometimes people are spending 1, 2, 3 hours a day researching, which I'm all for the love of learning and digging into things, but then going down that rabbit hole and just making yourself feeling worse doesn't make sense. So definitely check out her episode there, number 1. And so Amira and I work very closely together. So we co-facilitate the online Mindfulness Fertility Series. And this is a 6-week online program that helps us embrace the fertility journey. And it has proven relaxation techniques, stress management strategies, and it helps you regain control and cope with infertility in a much more positive way. I'm excited that our next session is starting Thursday, April the 25th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So this is a live group program, and it's a 6-week program. It's 90 minutes, so 7:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern every Thursday for 6 weeks. There is some early bird bonuses, so definitely check that out. Go to fabfertile.com and then click on shop and then mindfulness series to sign up. I'll also have the link in the show notes. And so it's a 6-week series. Amira and I are co-facilitating. This is the 3rd year that we've run these groups, and Amira has run the mindfulness fertility groups in a hospital setting in Toronto at Mount Sinai for years. Tons of success stories, and with our online program, we have tons of success stories of people getting pregnant naturally or helping them go through IVF and having a successful outcome. So if you have an IVF or an IUI coming up, we highly recommend this program to really get you into a positive and resilient mindset. So I'll just give you a little bit more about Amira. So Amira is Healing Infertility's lead counselor. She's a professional therapist with a bachelor and master's degree in social work from the University of Manitoba. And she also has formal training in hypnotherapy, Reiki, and the relaxation response. And before we jump into today's show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this to make sure you never miss an episode. Hey, Amira, welcome back to the podcast. Excited to have you again.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So today we are going to be digging into, I think, an important topic that a lot of people deal with around the fertility journey is really the connection piece, and then how to, in a time when you feel so kind of isolated and that many people may not understand what you're going through, and then we pull away from all the people that we need. So we pull away, and then it's actually connection that we are craving. So let's dig into that a little bit and see where we go. Yeah. So with that, how do we, and from the Resolve, the National Fertility Awareness Association in the U.S., they talk about this building a bridge back and asking for what we need. Yeah. So how would that look?
Yeah, it's so interesting because when you talk about building a bridge back, I think that the bridge has to go first towards ourselves, and we need to connect with ourselves in a different way. And through that, we open up and we're able to connect with others. As you know from your own journey, it's devastating to go through all the different emotions that make you feel like you're defective, like you're less than, and the wall of shame, it just rises. And because of that, you retreat, you contract, you push away life, right? And we're living in that state through fear. So connection is really important because we want to break that down and get back to ourselves. Maybe not who we were before this journey started, but a new person, someone who can get through this with more ease and resilience. And so I think it starts connecting to ourselves. And we can do that through a number of different ways. And one of the ways is making ourselves vulnerable. And actually, vulnerability is almost the opposite to connection, right? Like when we make ourselves vulnerable, there's a natural connection that takes place because we're actually moving into our feelings as opposed to avoiding them or pushing them away. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of that whole thing, because if we keep pushing them down, all these really strong, heartbreaking, painful feelings, keep pushing them down, they will pop up. Like they will pop up with you yelling at your spouse or in traffic wanting to, beat on the steering wheel because you're angry at the person in front of you that cut you off. Like all these things will kind of burst out of you, and usually not in, the least kind of expected situations. So being able to recognize that what you're going through. And a lot of times I know for me, I like to push ahead, keep going, I'm fine, nothing's wrong here, keep going. And then till I'm like, why am I freaking out that the front hall closet has got a shoe jammed in it and I'm ready to throw the shoe across the room, so, and I will go to anger. So for me, other people will go to crying or
right.
being emotional, crying at the drop of a hat, right? Or jealousy or different emotions, right? Where our default in times of stress, where do you go?
Right. And that's sort of reactivity and reaction. But the moment we can just drop beneath that and uncover all of these things that aren't necessarily true, all of these deep-rooted beliefs about ourselves, how we thought of fertility when we were little girls, how that shaped what we think about it now, what our culture says about our bodies. Actually, it was interesting. I was thinking back to when I got my period for the first time and how my mother sort of responded to it. And I remember it was almost with shame. It wasn't something that she was excited about or we really talked about. And I think that in our culture, there's a perpetuation of some of these stories, right? And beneath it all, we all hold this blueprint of how to conceive. And that's what we need to uncover. And so just allowing ourselves to feel some of these feelings, even though they may not feel good, because they don't. Nobody wants to feel anxiety every moment they wake up or jealous every time they see a pregnant belly or somebody pushing a stroller. I believe that our mind actually makes it a lot worse than it is. So it's trying to get beneath what is really happening in the moment, right? Not back into the future and not forward into next cycle, but what is happening now in this minute, right? And that's what we need to uncover. And we talk a lot about this in our mind-body group, just bringing into our consciousness new ways of opening ourselves to this experience, literally through relaxation, but also in our minds, right?
Yeah, circling back to the period thing. Yeah, I remember for me, I was always like, oh my goodness, my period's coming. I'm really embarrassed. I had to have the pad and you would hide it. And you, I don't know, just kind of embarrassed about the whole thing. My mom she was okay with it. But I was like, oh, I'm on my period. It's funny with my daughter is the opposite. She's like, Dad, I'm on my period. And she's like running around with the whatever tampon or pad or whatever she has. And, it's like no big deal. It's just kind of, yeah, as a woman, we bleed and so, yeah, there's like no shame about it at all. And now it's kind of in society, right? We're talking all about, there's period NDs and kind of it just bringing the conversation out in the open. Because if this is part of all women are doing this, why is there that shame? And even with our bodies and stuff too, like hiding our bodies. And yeah, the shame piece kind of goes deep. And I remember in grade 7 health class watching, I think we all saw it, where you see a birth, and we were all like, all my friends and I were like traumatized, the blood, and we're like, oh my God, like just the trauma of seeing that. And then some of those things could be, locked in your subconscious about potentially how you see birth. So there's a lot of fear and stuff around that as well.
Right. So it's embedded. It's embedded in our story and it's embedded in our culture. Part of our role is bringing it into our conscious so we can change it, right? And so we can get to that blueprint, right? And it also goes back to, your thoughts about what success means, right? And, what does it mean to be fertile? What does it mean to do well? We also live in a culture where, we strive for things, we work hard, and then we're rewarded, right? And the outcome, and we get what we want. But in this case, it doesn't always correlate like that. It's not an immediate outcome. So then we try to look for an answer and solve the problem. And then we oftentimes blame ourselves. And it's like insult to injury. And we just have to stop and say, wait a second, this isn't helping. It's actually making me feel worse.
Mm-hmm. And so as we say, the connection starts with connecting to yourself. And first of all, recognizing that you're even having some of these thoughts. And then perhaps, as you say, that blueprint that formed back when we were, having our periods, or just young girls, about how this path or journey would look like. And I guess preconceived notions, or what do you?
No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And so we break it down and we compartmentalize and we look at things that we can do to empower ourselves and not to sort of live in that cyclical negative, in that vortex, right? Or, you've often referred to it as the rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. We talked about that on the other podcasts. Really stepping up, and instead of sort of blocking and letting all of these, I call it like a smorgasbord of emotions. It's like you don't even know which one you're feeling, but you're feeling horrible, right?
And sorry, go ahead.
And so it's being like, okay, I'm going to tune into how I'm feeling. And I use the RAIN technique, which I never created. It was actually developed by Tara Brach. And she uses it as a way to work with difficult emotions. So it's one that I use in my groups, and we talk a lot about it in our group. And it's really going beneath the turmoil, going beneath the chaos and all the emotions. And it helps create space so that you can make new choices and that you can feel more empowered and feel more in control. RAIN, it's an acronym, really. It's kind of funny because when you think of the rain, it's like a downpour. But then R stands for just to recognize what's happening, right? So oftentimes our mind makes something the way it is, but then there's the reality of what is actually happening. And then the A is just to allow life to be just as it is. That's such a hard one, Sarah, just to let it be as it is. It's just acknowledging and accepting the present moment and reality. And that doesn't mean we have to like it, right? It just means that we're going to soften our resistance. That's how I like to put it. So the I is for investigate inner experience. When we can just let life be as it is, then we open up to just seeing how it is, right? So it's not something created in our minds. Just looking at what you're feeling, what's going on around you. Why do I feel the way I do? Investigating our inner experience. And then the N stands for non-identification. And this is really important because as we turn our attention to non-identification, we realize that we are not our thoughts. We are not this experience. And most importantly, we are not our infertility. Right? So it just gives you a deeper sense of the fact that this is transient, right? Could be for a moment, it could be for 3 moments, it could be for an hour, right? But it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. The RAIN technique's amazing. I use it for difficult emotions I experience in my life. And I know many of the clients I work with use it. And the more you do it, the faster you can drop into it.
Yeah, because a lot of times we have these. Well, first of all, we don't know we're having the thoughts, and then it's to bring awareness to it. So the RAIN technique. So going over. So ours is to recognize the emotion that's troubling you and pay attention to it without adding the judgment. Because a lot of times we're like, oh my goodness, here we go again, and we judge ourselves.
Right, but that's probably the hardest one, right? Because it's a very strong emotion. We need to gently turn towards it, like in an open, non-judgmental way, right? So imagine turning to jealousy or feeling of defectiveness and saying, hi, how are you? What does this feel like? Right? And with loving kindness.
Yeah, and as we're not the emotion.
Right.
Those thoughts, we think that's us, or that's us saying it, whereas that is not us.
Right. It's moving through us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the acceptance piece to kind of befriend it. And know that it's a feeling, it's going to pass.
Right. Exactly. It's not going to stay with you forever. It's coming up for whatever reason. It is what it is. And that's okay. It's just moving through you and we're going to feel vulnerable through it, right? But not to push that feeling away, because the more we push it away, the bigger we make it. So the more we can feel it, the more we can just break it down, the more present we can be, the less we are going to survive on our autopilot, and the more conscious we can make this experience, right? And through that, we can rewrite our whole fertility story, right? And change the way we want to be and change the way we want to feel. And that's a lot of what mind-body is.
And so breathing into it too can be helpful.
Yeah. And yoga and moving your body, like it doesn't need to be specifically yoga. It can be going for long walks or, seeking out parks that at different times of the year and like going through nature and connecting to different environments.
Mm-hmm. So this is the acceptance piece. And then we go into investigate.
Yeah. So investigate our inner experience is really once we sort of allowed a little bit of time, and a little bit of space, then we can look at what's really happening here. What's really going on.
Yeah. And how do we feel it where do we feel in our body? Is it like a tightening in the throat or the chest or the stomach? Where is that feeling? And sometimes that comes naturally for some people. Other times, I remember years ago when someone's like, where do you feel that emotion? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't feel it anywhere. It's all in my head. What are you saying? I can't feel it in my body. But then as we really kind of, if we, do these steps and kind of move into that breathing and really get into your body and you're like, wait a minute. Okay. I feel that like panicky, whatever it may be, jealous, anger, pain. I feel it, in my heart, or I feel it in my stomach, or wherever you may feel it.
Right. And
then what do I need to get through that?
Right. And I think once we've gotten to that point, we'll feel good enough to get to a place where we can say, like, what do I really need right now? Right? Are there other actions I could take to nurture and support myself? And we get to the wiser part of our mind where more thought out ideas come, right? Where we can uncover that deep rooted belief that, we will eventually become a mother. So it's a process of investigation. And we do it in a loving, gentle way.
Yeah, and the non-identification piece, the last part, is really exploring those uncomfortable emotions with self-compassion.
Right. And realizing that you are not your mind or your emotions. You're just your awareness that is always there, right? Underneath every thought, emotion. It's like Eckhart Tolle, what he refers to as the witness, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes that witness could be very judgmental and very cruel. And other times that witness could show kindness and love and support, right? And so we want to connect to that with ourselves. Non-identification is, the idea that who you are is not fused or tangled into all of this. And that's really hard to conceptualize, considering that's how we feel as we're going through it, right? It almost overtakes us.
And then looking at patterns, which I work with people a lot with, like, oh, there's the pattern.
Right.
We keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
Reacting the same way.
Right.
Because we're on automatic pilot. But then when you start to look at this, you're like, oh, okay, that's what I do in this situation. And then it's being able to step back a little bit and ask for what you need and maybe, and protect yourself a little bit. And so using this technique can be helpful to even get yourself off that reactivity.
Yeah, exactly. Your programming is going to keep showing up through this experience, right? It's the perfect vessel for our patterns to repeat themselves, mm-hmm. right? And when we're high stress and you're in the 2-week wait or you're doing IVF, or when things just don't turn out, our reactions are going to be the same. And if we're the type of person that tends to catastrophize, then that's where we're going to go, right? If we grew up in an environment where our mothers catastrophized, then that's where it came from. But when we can bring this all into our conscious awareness, we can start to see that we have a choice to make, right? And we don't need to live by those automatic reactions.
Yeah, either ruminating or catastrophizing.
Yeah.
Future side of things, especially in the fertility journey.
In one of my articles, I refer to it as the infertility inferiority complex, mm-hmm. right? And so similar to the inferiority complex, it's the same, only you're feeling less than because you're not living up to the standard of being able to conceive, right? But what if we just decided for a second, and we do this in the group sometimes, to just be vulnerable with it, right? And to know that what we're experiencing we're not the only ones in the world experiencing it. In fact, in Canada, it's 1 in 6, and in the States, it's 1 in 8. It's very natural and it's very normal. And many couples that go through it, many individuals that go through it, they go through fertility treatment, and some end up becoming parents, right? And some will continue fertility treatment for many, many years. And eventually, if you continue on the journey long enough, you will become a parent. Now, it may not have been the way you initially thought you would be a parent, but we change as our story changes, right?
Yeah, I like the quote from Brene Brown, who's the shame researcher and written many books. She's got a new one, but I think How Leaders. I can't remember the name of the new one, but the other one, she has the Gifts of Imperfection and then Daring Greatly. I think many people have read her books, but I like this quote from her. So the difficult thing is that vulnerability is the first thing I look for in you and the last thing I'm willing to show you. In you and courage and daring, in me it's weakness.
Yeah, I think, as human beings, we have this tendency to focus on the negative and strive for perfection, right? And we need to focus on our courage and our authenticity. And that's what she's all about. I love Brene Brown.
Oh, yeah. It was interesting when we see people sharing their stories like, oh my goodness, look how brave. Oh, me, I'm like, oh no, I couldn't do that. That's I'd be viewed as weak.
Well, I think that's the message we're taught, right?
So in this journey, becoming vulnerable, now obviously it's picking a trusted person to be vulnerable with, which is important. And Brene Brown talks about that as well. A trusted person to share your story with, and especially kind of what you need. And in the first topic, we were talking about building a bridge back. So how what you need from your family, friends, coworkers, on this journey.
Right. And I think it's scary, right? Because when we make ourselves vulnerable, we put ourselves out there, and, we run the risk of being hurt or sad or embarrassed, or someone saying something that we may not appreciate. And so I think, it is really important who we decide to be vulnerable with. And I think it's really easy connecting to somebody who has been through the same journey, someone who's on the same journey. And that's why I think support groups are great. But that's not realistic for everyone. And everyone has to live their life and go to work and, be out in the community. And so it's not an easy process, right? And I think, when you have a workplace as well, and you need to take time off for fertility treatments, then, you need to make decisions around whether you discuss it with your boss or not, right? So these are all decisions that you can think about, and they're better to work through when you're feeling calm and collected, right? And I think starting with yourself, being vulnerable, and with your family and with your closest friends is probably the easiest. But that, family may be more difficult for some than others. But thinking about being vulnerable with the person that they're the closest with, it's a first step. And I'm sure in many of the listeners' lives, there are people that know about their journey, and there's people that they would never tell. What I find so interesting is that when people start to open up and talk about it, there's always someone in the room that says, me too, I have that, I've had that before, or I know somebody, or it just gets things going and people start talking. And that's what breaks down the shame, right? That vulnerability.
Yeah, being able to again share with a trusted person. And with a friend, it may be either you could share with that person, or maybe you'll say, you know what, I just want to direct you to some literature, and you can, if you're in Canada, it's Fertility Matters. They have some good information there. With the US, there's the Resolve, or also I've got lots of information on my site, Fab Fertile, as well as Amira on hers, Healing Infertility, of how to deal with some of these emotions where you're not sure where to start.
Yeah.
You can direct them to some literature, or if you feel ready, you can share where you are. And then there's the vulnerability piece. And so is another layer is with men. So men typically aren't joining support groups, aren't, reaching out to family members, and may not even tell a soul. And the only person they talk to is their partner. And I did have podcast is how men deal with infertility with John Waldman.
Oh yeah, he's the one that did the TED Talk.
Yeah. So he was on the podcast. So he talked about his journey and kind of how as a man, how he handled it. So that's definitely a cool episode to listen to. But so another layer of this is for men, that with the shame associated with that.
Yeah, I think it's really different how we deal with this among the sexes, generally speaking. I have seen roles reversed.
That's right.
But men are, first of all, they're removed from the experience physically for the most part, right? So they don't need to be involved in all the cycle monitoring. They don't although they do go through the tests and they do need to show up when the time is needed. And just going back to how men and women deal with problems. Men are very like problem solve oriented, less relational. And women, all we want to do is relate and talk about our problems. So it's funny when I see couples, because the woman often feels like the man's too positive, or that her counterpart's too positive, doesn't really care, and it's annoying. But then I say to her, well, what if he were as catastrophizing as you are? And it's true, they wouldn't want that. So it's a good balance, but it doesn't mean that men aren't hurting. It's difficult, and men don't generally connect. So when we talk about connection, we're talking more women and women connecting, and just understanding that men, like, their whole brains are different than how we work.
Yeah, this is generally speaking.
Yeah.
And typically it's women that reach out to me, and I was just coaching women in the beginning, and they were missing the whole other side to this was with the partner, and it is the partner is just as equally affected by this whole journey, and sometimes they don't have anyone to speak to. So it is important to have someone, maybe they're a coach or a therapist, or someone to speak about your emotions, because again, they're bottled up.
Yeah.
And it could come out at the wrong time, or just that it's not beneficial to you.
Right. I always am so impressed when a couple reaches out for counseling, and it's the male that calls me to make the appointment. Yeah, so it's a lot of work, and it's a journey, right? And that's why we refer to it as a journey, not necessarily one we chose to be on, one with a lot of uncertainty, but I don't think life is with certainty, right?
And I like, the beginning, middle, and an end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think now we're going to have you go through a hypnotherapy experience to help us become more vulnerable.
Yeah. So it's a really simple thing that I'm going to ask you to do. And I just would like you to close your eyes. You can put your phone down, but hopefully still listen. And just take your attention and put it towards your breath. And you're breathing in and you're breathing out. And just listen to my guidance as we try to unblock feelings of sadness and anger and pain and all those unwanted emotions that we close ourselves off to. And what happens when we close ourselves off to these emotions is that we also close ourselves off to happiness, joy, and love. As we breathe deeply inside, our lungs are being filled with the oxygen, and our bodies are relaxing deeper. Just sense how you feel right now. Sense what it would feel like to be vulnerable, to be okay with this moment, with this day, and all that encompasses it. Just letting go and allowing you to feel all of the feelings. And you may be feeling something, or you may be feeling nothing. But you're making yourself and allowing yourself to be more vulnerable. Taking that chance. Trusting your body. trusting that you deserve good things, connecting to yourself, connecting to feelings of joy, feelings of hope. When you're vulnerable, you break through barriers. You have nothing to hide. Your story will inspire others. Focus on your courage and your authenticity. This is the truth. This is the authentic you. And when you come out of this relaxed state, you are going to feel relaxed, renewed, rejuvenated. And you are going to befriend vulnerability, knowing that each one of us is vulnerable in our own way, and that vulnerability is embedded into our human condition. In fact, without it, I'm not sure we would survive. Taking a deep breath in and filling those lungs with oxygen, and taking a deep breath out. And when you're ready, you can wiggle your toes and wiggle your fingers and welcome yourself back to the rest of your day.
Yeah, that was lovely.
Good. Well, that's just a little taste of getting to feeling vulnerable.
Yeah, and so what's one step we can take to deepen our connection to ourselves?
I think the first step or one step is just thinking about connecting to ourselves in a loving way, right? So that could be just taking your hands and putting it on your belly and rubbing it, or taking a hand and putting it on your shoulder and patting yourself. It's in between those moments when you stop that judgment, when you stop those feelings of shame. And that's a start, starting that connection with ourselves. When we connect ourselves and we feel okay, then we feel okay a little bit better around others. And it's easier for us to connect with them as well. Yeah, so it's a process.
So rubbing our belly or putting a hand on our shoulder build into that kindness to ourselves and the loving kindness, which is one of the exercises we do in our mindfulness fertility series. So our Mindfulness Fertility Series is launching very shortly. So it's starting Thursday, April the 25th.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have a group of women. So basically it's all on Zoom. So it's all virtual. So we have women all over the world. And it is a place for us all to connect. And really, as you shine compassion on someone else, then you can then shine it back to yourself. So someone in the same situation and people from our previous groups, they still can stay in contact. And really it's a support system as well. And more than a support group going through each week. So it's a 6-week series. And each week you'll learn a new tool that you can incorporate. And then as you layer them each week after week, at the end of it, you've strengthened your resilience, sort of got yourself on a path as you sort of some tools to help you cope as you're on the fertility journey. Because if we don't have a rudder, or if we're just kind of aimlessly going along, this is really helping to bring awareness to the thoughts that we are having, and then we can start to change them.
Yeah, I can't wait, Sarah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what we do, so you can just, there'll be a link in the show notes, but you can go to fabfertile.com and just click on shop and then the Mindfulness Fertility Series. And you can join. There's an early bird price going on right now. So jump on that as soon as you can. And it starts on Thursday, April the 25th. And it's from 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and it's 90 minutes. And so basically you can join in the comfort of your own home, and you'll be given, as I say, you'll be on Zoom. So it's just an app that you can download on your phone or on your computer, and we can all connect via video. And typically we have about 8 to 12 people in the group, and all in various stages of their fertility journey. Lending it's we're co-facilitating it, but also the people in the group, the connections that are made in there are equally as important. And Amira has been running in-person groups for years now in a hospital fertility clinic setting in the Toronto area. And so we've been running the online portion of this. I think this is going into, is this year 3?
Yeah.
I know, crazy. So had some amazing success stories with here at Fab Fertile. We take a functional approach to this, looking at lab testing and diet and movement and environmental toxins and gut health and all of that, which is extremely important. And also in our programs, we layer in the mindfulness piece. We've had people just doing the mindfulness piece and getting pregnant. So and this is it's really based on the work of Alice Domar, who's a Harvard research and a pioneer in the mind-body fertility space, and she's been studying this for over 20 years. And women in her groups went on within 6 months. 55% of them got pregnant, and within 2 years, 95% of them became a mother somehow. So, strengthening your mindset and your mind on this journey is extremely, extremely powerful, and is really foundational, especially if you have an IUI or an IVF coming up. Also, if you're trying naturally, but especially to me, I think I'd almost go to say it's mandatory if you have an IVF. If you haven't got your mindset in shape for that IVF, I think it's crucial.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. So definitely go to FabFertile, FabFertile.com, click on the shop, and then Mindfulness Fertility Series. You can sign up. It starts Thursday, April the 25th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, if you have any questions, just send me an email to Sarah with an H.Clark at sesacoaching.ca. And I send an email. I send a newsletter out. So if you're on my newsletter, you can respond on there as well. But we'd be happy to have you join us. And anything else, Amira, before we go?
No, I think you covered it. I think that's great. I look so forward to the group.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks again for coming on the podcast, Amira, and sharing your words of wisdom. And I love the hypnotherapy session you did there about vulnerability. Yeah, thanks again. And talk to everyone soon. I'm excited to announce that our online Mindfulness Fertility Series is open today, April 12th, for registration. Early bird special price and bonuses are available until Wednesday, April the 17th. So this is a 6-week live online group program that helps embrace your fertility journey with proven relaxation techniques and stress management strategies that help you regain control and cope with infertility in a much more positive way. Space is very limited. Register your spot today. So this program is a must if you have an IUI or an IVF coming up, and is essential for anyone trying to get pregnant naturally. Class starts Thursday, April the 25th. So go to FabFertile, FabFertile.com, and click on the shop Mindfulness Fertility Series to register. Thank you for listening to Get Pregnant Naturally. Seriously, it means the world to me that you're here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can be notified of upcoming episodes. I'm excited to offer you a special gift. If you're a U.S. resident, text FERTILE to 345-345. You'll be prompted to enter your email address, and you'll receive our fertility yoga download. In this 20-minute intro video, we focus on a calming and peaceful practice to connect back to your heart. These simple fertility yoga poses can help quiet negative thoughts and make you feel more in control. Download it now and get started today. So for U.S. residents, text FERTILE, FERTILE, to 345-345. For non-U.S. residents, go to www.yogafreebie.com to access your special gift. That's www.yogafreebie.com to access the free fertility yoga download. And I love this quote by Dr. Mark Hyman, Medical Director of the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine, and chairman of the Institute for Functional Medicine. Functional medicine is medicine by cause, not by symptom. Functional medicine practitioners don't in fact treat disease. We treat your body's ecosystem. We get rid of the bad stuff, put in the good stuff, and because your body is an intelligent system, it does the rest. Thanks for listening. Until next time.